The Supreme Court just issued emergency stay that could end permit-to-purchase requirements across the United States. By the end of this video, you will know all the states that are impacted and all final decisions. So let's get into it.
If you're in states like Maryland, New Jersey, or Massachusetts, you may no longer need government permission to purchase firearms starting immediately. An unprecedented 6-3 emergency ruling issued late Friday, Supreme Court granted nationwide preliminary injunction blocking enforcement of permit-to-purchase laws in 8 states, while consolidated challenges proceed. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for a majority, held requiring government permits before purchasing firearms lacks sufficient historical analog under Bruen framework and constitutes prior restraint on constitutional rights. States affected immediately: Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Hawaii, Rhode Island, New York, Illinois. Gun owners can now purchase firearms without permits, effective immediately pending final decisions. Subscribe because this emergency ruling is creating chaos in state legislatures, and understanding what changed and what hasn't is critical for every gun owner in affected states. 8 states currently require permits before purchasing firearms. Multiple lawsuits challenge these schemes as violating Second Amendment under Bruen. Friday evening, Supreme Court consolidated challenges and issued emergency preliminary injunction blocking enforcement pending final resolution. Reasoning: Founding era and Reconstruction era had no tradition of requiring government permits before purchasing firearms. Colonial Americans bought guns from gunsmiths without government permission. First permit laws didn't appear until early 1900s, 100 plus years after Second Amendment. Under Bruen, lack of historical analog means permit schemes presumptively unconstitutional. Let me break down what the Supreme Court's ruling says, which states affected, what you can do tomorrow, what background checks remain, how states responding, and what happens next. Number 1, what the Supreme Court's ruling says. Procedural posture. 8 lawsuits challenged permit-to-purchase laws in MD, NJ, MA, CT, HI, RI, NY, Lower courts issued mixed rulings. Supreme Court consolidated and issued nationwide preliminary injunction pending final resolution. Chief Justice Roberts' opinion, writing for 6 justices, Roberts, Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett, Roberts held permit requirements are prior restraints on constitutional rights, requiring extraordinary historical justification. Court applied Bruen. Are there founding, Bosch, or Reconstruction analogs showing tradition of requiring government permission before purchasing? Answer: no. Colonial Americans purchased firearms freely without permits. State licensing of gunsmiths existed, regulating sellers, not licensing of purchasers, regulating buyers. First permit laws appeared early 1900s, century after Second Amendment. Lack of historical tradition means permits presumptively violate Second Amendment. Prior restraint analysis. Court analogized to First Amendment. Government cannot require permits before exercising speech rights, except narrow circumstances. Same for Second Amendment. Cannot require permits before purchasing arms absent historical tradition. Permit schemes. Give officials discretionary power to delay or deny rights, what Bruen prohibits. Immediate effect. Emergency injunction blocks enforcement in all 8 states effective immediately. Cannot require permits, cannot prosecute for purchasing without permits, cannot deny sales for lack of permits. Federal background checks, NICS, remain. Age restrictions remain. Prohibited persons laws remain. Only permit-to-purchase requirements enjoined. 3 dissenters, Sotomayor, Kagan. Jackson argued emergency relief inappropriate before full briefing. Warned of regulatory chaos and public safety risks. Majority: when fundamental rights violated, emergency relief appropriate. Number 2, which states affected and what changes? Maryland previously required handgun qualification license, HQL. Now, no HQL. Purchase handguns with federal NAICS only. New Jersey previously required firearms. Purchaser ID card, FPID, and handgun purchase permits. Now, no FPID or permits. Federal background checks only. Massachusetts previously required firearms ID card, FID, or license to carry, LTC. Now, no FID or LTC for purchases. Connecticut previously required pistol permit or eligibility certificate. Now, no state permits. Federal checks only. Hawaii previously required permits for each purchase from county police. Now, no county permits. Rhode Island previously required pistol purchase permits from local authorities. Now, no local permits. New York previously required pistol licenses. Now, no state permits for purchases. Illinois previously required FOID before purchasing. Now, no FOID required. What remains? Federal NICS background checks for all FFL purchases. Age requirements: 18 for long guns, 21 for handguns. Prohibited persons laws: felons, domestic abusers. Assault weapons bans where they exist. Magazine limits where they exist. Carry permit requirements, not affected, only purchase permits enjoined. Number 3, what you can and cannot do starting tomorrow. Can do, purchase firearms from FFLs in affected states without state permits. Complete Federal Form 4473, and next as always. Take immediate possession upon passing next without permit waiting periods. Purchase ammunition without permits. Massachusetts particularly affected. Cannot do. Purchase if you're a prohibited person under federal law, felon, domestic abuser, fugitive, unlawful drug user, adjudicated mentally ill, dishonorable discharge, restraining order. Federal prohibitions remain. Purchase handguns if under 21 or long guns if under 18, federal age restrictions. Purchase assault weapons in states with AWBs, separate legal issue. Carry firearms without permits in states requiring carry permits. Ruling only affects purchase permits, not carry. Purchase across state lines without FFLs. Federal law still requires interstate purchases through dealers. Gray areas. Private sales between same state residents previously requiring permits may now be legal, but federal law applies. No sales to prohibited persons, no interstate without FFLs. Safest. Use FFLs even for private sales. Some local jurisdictions may not understand ruling yet. Bring copies of purchasing immediately. States may issue emergency guidance or alternative restrictions. Watch for state responses. Number 4, how states responding. Immediate responses. Affected states issuing emergency guidance to law enforcement and FFLs. Maryland AG directed state police to cease HQL enforcement, but warned other laws remain. New Jersey governor called ruling reckless, promising to seek clarification. Massachusetts exploring alternative regulations, satisfying Bruin, such as mandatory training not tied to permits. Legislative responses. Connecticut legislature called emergency session to consider mandatory waiting periods, training, enhanced background checks not structured as permits. Illinois drafting legislation requiring proof of insurance, training, secure storage before sales, achieving delay without calling it permit. Rhode Island considering dealer licensing enhancements functionally creating permit by another name. Law enforcement, state AGs issuing guidance, stop arrests for purchasing without permits, dismiss pending permit charges, cease permit processing, maintain enforcement of federal prohibited persons, assault weapons bans, carry permits, all other regulations. ATF guidance to FFLs. Process sales using Form 4473 and NX only, don't require state permits, maintain federal compliance. Federal response. DOJ. Reviewing ruling and implications. Federal law remains in full effect. Prohibited persons still prohibited. No indication DOJ will challenge would be extraordinary and futile. Challenges. States may petition Supreme Court for clarification or modification. Unlikely to succeed, given 6-3 majority. May accelerate lower court appeals to get final rulings faster. Number 5, what happens next? Current status, emergency preliminary injunction blocks enforcement while cases proceed through normal appeals. Cases at various stages. Supreme Court consolidated for emergency relief, but not for final merits review. Lower court proceedings. Over next 6 to 12 months, district courts hold trials on merits. Circuit courts review district decisions. Normal appellate process continues despite emergency injunction. States will argue permits serve compelling interests, preventing trafficking, ensuring competence, reducing impulsive violence, and have historical analogs. Supreme Court final decision. Eventually, court will grant certiorari to resolve circuit splits and issue final ruling on whether permits violate Second Amendment. Earliest, June 2027, argued 2026-2027 term. More likely, June 2028, argued 2027-2028 term. Emergency injunction remains until final decision. Possible outcomes. 1. Court strikes down all permit requirements as unconstitutional, makes emergency injunction permanent. 2. Court upholds some permit systems with sufficient analogs or narrow tailoring, modifies, or lifts injunction. 3. Court remands for further fact-finding. Injunction status unclear. Implications for other regulations. Signals court's willingness to use emergency docket aggressively for Second Amendment. Suggests court views post-Bruin resistance requiring immediate intervention. Other regulations may receive similar emergency treatment. Assault weapons bans, magazine limits, sensitive place restrictions, may issue schemes. Bottom line, Supreme Court issued emergency preliminary injunction blocking permit to purchase enforcement in 8 states, Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Hawaii, Rhode Island, New York, Illinois. Effective immediately, gun owners can purchase firearms from FFLs without state permits. Only federal NACs required. Reasoning, no founding Reconstruction tradition of requiring government permits before purchasing. Colonial Americans bought guns freely. First permit laws appeared early 1900s, a century after Second Amendment. Under Bruin, lack of historical analog means permits presumptively unconstitutional. What remains? Federal background checks, age restrictions, prohibited persons laws, assault weapons bans, where exist, magazine limits, where exist, carry permit requirements, not affected, state responses, emergency guidance to stop enforcing permits, legislative efforts for alternative restrictions, law enforcement directed to cease permit arrests. Next steps, cases proceed through lower courts over 24 months. Supreme Court final decision expected 2027-2028. Emergency injunction remains pending final resolution. Subscribe because gun permit cases moving rapidly, and I'm tracking every development affecting your right to purchase without government permission. Supreme Court just ended permits. Know your rights and what you can do starting tomorrow.